That is actually what Muslims in Palestine should be doing. They should be acting like Muslims and going on hijrah to Jordan. But the Muslims throw their religion under the bus when it suits their geopolitical aspirations to create a cause that can rally Muslims in their hatred of the West and in their hatred of the Jews, which they have done recently across the world. Across the world, we have seen protests that have stated Palestine will be free from the river to the sea. That is calling for the destruction of the Jewish state and the expulsion of 6 million Jews, if not more, from the Middle East. It is calling for the destruction of a Jewish homeland. Now, why do Muslims carry out or seek to carry out this kind of ethnic and religious cleansing? It is because their prophet himself is recorded in their reliable texts, their Sayyadiths, calling for the cleansing of the Arabian Peninsula of every Jew and every Christian. That is what Muhammad called for in Sahih Hadiths. Now, why do the Muslims have the barefaced cheek to condemn Israel on the grounds of ethnic cleansing when their own prophet called for the religious cleansing of Saudi Arabia? Do the Muslims not see that when you condemn Israel for ethnic cleansing, you are condemning your prophet who tried and called for the same thing? And it wasn't even Muhammad that managed to carry out this command. It was the Caliph Umar who expelled the Jews from the Arabian Peninsula and the Christians from the Arabian Peninsula. There were Christians in Najaf. There were Christians in the Valley of the Khyber. And Umar, following the prophetic command, expelled those Christians and Jews.
Shameful.
And Muslims who demand the freeing of Palestine from the river to the sea are imitating a prophet who carried out ethnic cleansing and his Sahaba. And when Muslims condemn Israel for carrying out ethnic cleansing, they are condemning their prophet and Umar, the Sahaba of the prophet. Their conscience is condemning something because their conscience is from God, but their religion is from tyrants of the 7th century. And they throw their own religion under the bus because the Islamic response is to perform hijrah if you are persecuted. So, if you feel persecuted, the Islamic response is to leave and go to a Muslim country. So all those Muslims in France who talk about Islamophobia, the Islamic response is to perform hijrah and leave France. All the Muslims who talk about Islamophobia in the UK, the Islamic response is to perform hijrah and leave the UK. Same for the Palestinian Muslims. But we Christians have no such concept, which means that Palestinian Christians should continue in Palestine and continue to resist the injustices of Israel as Christians.
Deres fault.
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 No. The cause of the Palestinian people will be better served when it is uncoupled from terrorist networks like Hamas and Hezbollah. If the Palestinians were to allow the Christians to lead their resistance against the injustice of Israel, the world will side with them. Has anyone got a bottle of water? I'm suffering from hay fever. It's getting on my throat. So Christians, we must stand with our own brothers and sisters. We must stand with our own brothers and sisters, both inside Israel and inside Palestine. Muslims in Sharia law believe in an apartheid system where Jews and Christians would be made second-class citizens in an Islamic state. They would be refused high office in an Islamic state. They would not be allowed to join the Islamic military. They would not be allowed to convert Muslims to Christianity. They would not be allowed to marry Muslim women. They would not be allowed to repair their churches without express permission from the Caliph. They would be payable to a tax that could be as high as 50%, called the jizya. Islam would enshrine an apartheid system of laws upon Jews and Christians. So when Muslims condemn Israel for its apartheid laws against Arabs and against Palestinians in the Middle East, they are in fact condemning their own religion. Why? Because their conscience is from God, but their religion comes from 7th century tyrants. Christians, when the discussion about Palestine and Israel emerges, these are the things that we need to be saying. We need to be standing with persecuted Christians. We need to be standing with persecuted Christians, whether they are in Palestine or in Israel. We need to be standing with persecuted Christians against Hamas, against the PLO, and against Israel. We need to be exposing the hypocrisy of the Islamic narrative that condemns Israel for apartheid whilst preaching apartheid against Christians and Jews. We need to expose the Islamic teaching against Israel for its ethnic cleansing when Muhammad called for the ethnic cleansing of the Arabian Peninsula, and where the Sahaba carried out that ethnic cleansing against Jews and Christians. Any Christian, any questions? Yeah, I owe you money. Any questions? How you doing? I need water. Really dying. Any questions going once? Any questions going twice?